There was the infamous Ranga Billa case, in which Ranga and Billa were awarded death penalty by the Supreme Court. And the reasoning for death penalty was that they had broken the locks of the door from inside after kidnapping two kids, and they could not escape. And finally they committed murder. And this was the reason given for awarding death penalty. So if similar cases arise in future, it does not mean that the same reasoning will apply. And it does not mean that if kidnapping takes place in a car, death penalty should be awarded if they die consequently. So the reasonableness of a judgment keeps changing, and that is the toughest task for a judge. For understanding this, we need to understand two important terms. The first one is induction. Induction simply means a method of discovering a particular theory out of the available facts. And premise means a statement or an idea which develops and helps in forming an argument. So these two terms are very important, and it is for the judge to realize what is the major premise which will help in delivering a judgment. So there is a comparison between the two. To understand this better, I'll give you an example. Suppose the facts of case A are decided as X, and the facts of case B are also decided as X. It means that collectively facts of case A and B can be decided as X. And it also means that facts of case C, D, E and F might also be decided as X. So it means that there is some reasoning behind all this which helps in giving a definite conclusion, a definite judgment. And that reasoning has to be supported by a solid ground, a solid logic. Because if that logic is lacking in a decision, then that decision is liable to be struck down in future, and the higher courts may struck it down and may not follow it. So for understanding this better, we need to draw a comparison between a scientist and a judge. And that is very interesting if you are aspiring to be a judge or you are already a judge. So let's discuss few very important points. The first being, scientific principles for a scientist, they result from observance of a data, whereas for a judge, the conclusion, the judgment which has been given, it is given through observance of facts which are presented before him or her. Secondly, a judge can reason by analogy. Analogy means by comparing different data which are available, different facts which are available, whereas a scientist can conduct an independent study, irrespective of any comparison. I'll explain this to you through an example. There was a case of dowry death in which a lady died due to burn injuries. The prosecution stated that it was a case of abetment of suicide. She committed suicide, and the defense stated that this was an accident. Now, how analogy is applied? The Supreme Court observed the facts which were all around that lady, irrespective of observing how much burn she got. The Supreme Court observed that the gas stoves, 3 gas stoves which were present there, the lids were open, they could not explode. There was no milk all around present in the kitchen, which meant that the lady was not working. The kerosene bottle, the bottle glass pieces which were broken and which was all around, it contained kerosene, smell of kerosene. The body consisted finally of kerosene. So these were the facts all around which were present, and Supreme Court observed and finally concluded through analogy that this was a case of suicide and not an accident. Next point, a scientific principle has to be modified so as to accommodate the facts and the theory. This has been earlier stated by Einstein also. Whereas judicial principles, they are emanated as per according to the moral and policy considerations of a society. Next, a scientist must accommodate all the data so as to propound a theory or complete his observations or complete his experiment. Whereas the main discretion for a judge lies here. The judge chooses between the facts which are available before him and then finally give a judgment and finally decide a case. Lastly, the most important comparison between a scientist and a judge is, a scientist can repeat his experiment and verify his principles again and again. He can change the situations, but a judge cannot. He has to observe it carefully, and finally what has been said becomes final. Thank you.